Hello and welcome. Welcome to Office Hours number 821. We have been very busy, very busy. And speaking of busy, David will be joining us in just a bit. He's busy. We just finished filming season 9 of Office Hours, the Apple TV series, which will air later, early next year. We just wrapped that up last night in Las Vegas at the studio there. So today's Office Hours Soul of Business version, we have got 3 fascinating guests to join us today. And like I said, David will be joining us in just a bit. But before we get too far down the road here, I want to bring John in. And we'll just begin the conversation here. John Lex Robinson, the founder of the Viros Group, based out of Ohio, Westerville, Ohio.
That's
been
correct.
A long time since I've been in that neck of the woods. Yeah.
It's a good area to be. It's a little chilly right now. Getting darker than normal, but no, we love it. So
that's great.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure. And like I've mentioned twice already, David will be dropping in here just as soon as he wraps up.
No struggles.
This other piece. I mean, it's herding cats. We're juggling balls all over the place here. So, you brought out a new book, and I say new book, August of this year, and I'm fascinated by just the topical focus of this. AI is on everybody's radar right now. And I have spent probably the last 48 years working in the field, if you will, of leadership and leadership development, and the challenges that leaders face when change is afoot.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not that it's fast; it's just that it's infinite and consistent now.
Yes,
absolutely. In terms of change, and what I was really after there, and what I'm really after with the Viros Group is, I'm looking to ensure that we're developing what I would call human-centric leaders, right? To ensure that what we're really doing with what we develop and how we develop and the products and services that we put out actually serve us well. I think there's a lot of examples in modern society, and we don't need to go through all of those, where technology that we've put out is actually maybe not performing the way that we wanted to. I think social media is the easiest example of that.
Yeah.
And frankly, over at least the last 10 to 15 years, and it's probably my whole career in technology, we've never really done a great job of ensuring that our leadership skills in the technology services space keep pace with the technology that we're putting out. It's like we've created all this capability, and now we need to really learn and understand how do we manage this and shepherd it moving forward.
Yeah, and those two pieces, manage and shepherd, I think come into play here. And I was struck, when I was reading some of the great notes that our team puts together prior to these shows airing, with the work that you've been doing. And I didn't mention the title of the book. I do want to get the title of the book in here because it's germane to what we're talking about. Xecutive 2.0. Human leadership for the digital age.
Yes.
That in and of itself, I think, is worth emphasizing. Human leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Age. Yeah. And it's on the cover for a reason, right? Because a part of my own personal belief system, I never want to create a fear bubble around AI. Yeah. But what I do want to do is say it's important that in technology specifically, we establish ourselves as leaders for that whole shepherding of AI. I want us to remain in charge. I want human beings to make the decisions. I want us to understand the impacts that we're having on others and make decisions appropriately in that lens. Because what you see happen a lot now is we're actually being led by the machine. So that's my nickname for AI, right? So we're being led by the machine. We're not leading it. And that may be fine for everyday uses and examples of that. Like, just look at how Amazon sells you things. It's fascinating. It's incredible. But that's being led by a machine. That's not being led by a person.
Exactly.
All I want to do is make sure that we keep the human in that loop and that we put them fully accountable and in charge of what we're doing.
Well, which speaks to emotional intelligence. And part of what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to actually opening the book. The idea of kind of how we think. This is where we're looking at peak performance, neuroscience, these sorts of things, emotional intelligence. And I made this comment, when we were filming in Las Vegas yesterday, to a comment that somebody else had made around communication. And the comment was, most people think of communication as being a logical process. Let's get the data and the facts in.
Yeah, right.
Communication is actually a biological process.
Yeah.
And it's all, it all organizes around meaning making.
Absolutely.
And when that's in place, and leaders understand that, communication hasn't happened unless common meaning has been established.
That's right.
Then we've got a basis to actually do something with. And in technology, that oftentimes gets missed because we default, in my experience, to the data set and said, well, let's let it run and see where we go.
Of course we do. I mean, I'm traditionally trained as an engineer as well. And as engineers, we think we can put in place perfect processes and perfect procedures. And if everybody just does this, we'll be just fine. But just like in the AI realm, which is really pulling this out now, AI functions incredibly well in a static environment with static data. But the moment I include randomness, which means people, right? The machine doesn't get meaning, to your point. I get meaning. I assign meaning to even the results that I get from a chat GPT conversation or from some interaction with another model. And it's us that are assigning meaning. And I think that's why, not to go down a dark rabbit hole here, but I think this is what people sense when they interact with AI, particularly the LLM models, and they get uneasy because they're not sure if they should trust it or not. And that's because there's no connection to the creator in the background.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a huge part. And I think being able to make those connections, like the one that we're making here, a real conversation, is people are starved for it, and particularly people that are looking for great leadership.
The idea of leadership, I want to, this topic has fascinated me for, almost 50 years now, because some organizations seem to really thrive, and other organizations, they just don't rise to the occasion.
That's right.
And it's attributable to the way that the leadership function actually exists within the organization.
Yes.
How do you define leadership?
I'm going to keep that really simple. People are willing to follow you. With no followers, you are not a leader. And I would make the suggestion that part of the reason that's happened, particularly in the technology space, is we don't develop leaders, because what we do instead is we say, Lex is a great engineer. David's a great developer. I'm now going to go put them in charge of the developers and the engineers, but I'm not going to support them in learning leadership skills.
Yeah.
And so that's really the gap that we're trying to fill and say, look, the skill set's completely different. Leadership is a set of skills, right? So I would add that to the definition. It's a certain way of being. It is the ability to connect and communicate, creatively solve problems in conjunction and collaboration with others. That's really how I begin to expand that out.
Yeah. That idea of it's a way of being. I mean, the old saw about leadership presence really is a valid way to organize around.
Absolutely.
The ethics. I'm really fascinated on your take about this. The ethically grounded in the use of AI. When I look at ChatGPT as an example, when I look at Gemini, when I look at a couple of some of these large LLM models, the guardrails have been deliberately taken off.
Yes.
From an ethical perspective, in terms of how they actually function. Claude actually probably has more constraints around it than some of the others do.
Yes.
How do you square that circle when we're looking at the use of this?
And I know the arguments are made to free all that up for the sake of freedom.
Yeah.
and free expression. And I kind of get it. But when that expression can become damaging to people and they don't even know it, that's kind of where I begin to draw the line.
Yeah.
Now, I borrow from like the Stanford D School when it comes to thinking about design and ethics and implementation, right? To be able to say all design work and implementation and development work needs to start with and end with empathy and understanding of the client, consumer, whoever I'm trying to serve, all the way through that process to how I test it and actually looking at the results and saying, what impact am I having? And frankly, in there, that exists almost nowhere in anybody's development model for software development does it ever say a requirement is do no harm.
Yeah. Thank you.
And that's really how ethics needs to get wrapped in there from my perspective. That's the shortest version of it.
God, we've got a couple of other shows. This is such a short form interview segment. I want to have you back on my show. I've got a couple of others as well. The soul of business, because I think this speaks to the soul of business, how you keep
absolutely
the vibrancy of the organization actually intact as you start moving down, whatever pathway you find yourself moving down. I apologize that David hasn't been able to break free right now. We will have you back again when he is available. But in the meantime, I do want to get you scheduled next year for one of these other shows, if you're open to it.
Absolutely. And I'm totally grateful for it. This is a conversation we need to be having. And I'm just happy to find people that want to have it with me.
Perfect. John is at the Viros Group, and it's VIROS. So the Viros Group, and Gigi has just put that up on the screen here. So check him out. Check the book out. The book is called Xecutive, and that's with an X. Xecutive 2.0, Human Leadership for the Digital Age. Have a great holiday season, John, and thank you very much for
you bet. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Take care. Wow, this is good stuff. I love this stuff, and this actually picks up on some of the stuff that we were looking at in the show yesterday that we were filming in Vegas. We had as one of the panel members one of the developers of Amazon's Alexa, and just the AI agentics that power that. Fascinating conversations, fascinating discussions. I'm going to transition here. Our next guest, Richard Greco. There you are. Hi, Richard.
How are you, Blaine?
I'm doing well. Money matters, and boy, is that true. Money matters. Want to talk about? You've got a couple of programmatic offers here that I think people are going to appreciate. But before we get to that, I mean, you're a former CFO with over 40 years of experience helping individuals and companies, do stuff. And I was in a conversation earlier today with a partner of mine about roles and positions. And if I just look at CFO as an example, the position of CFO is a money steward, and we're going to guard the money, take care of the vault. But there's also a role that a CFO can play, and I'll just use CFO generically here as we're looking to unbundle some things here. But as a strategic partner, the financing component of an organization from a strategic orientation, not just a P&L sort of an idea. With the work you do with your clients, what is the primary focus of money matters? How do you actually position this?
Well, and if I can address your first point there is, I think there's a misnomer. So a controller is really the individual that looks at the history of an organization. They put together the P&L and the balance sheet. So they're very tactical. A true CFO is strategic, and they're part of the executive team. So I usually use the term, the controller reports on history, the CFO creates history.
I love that.
That's how we look at it that way. And it's really interesting that you started at that topic, because this has been something I've been working on for many, many, many years. And one of the things that really hit me was when I first became a CFO, And I started working with other C-level executives like marketing or distribution and technology or whatever. And I joined an organization that previously had a controller that was called the CFO. And they just said, when it came to budgeting, here, you have X amount to spend. And that's not the way I look at it. It's kind of like, go make a business case, put a budget together, show us how you can run your organization. And what I found is most C-level executives that I work with had no idea how to do that. They didn't know how to put a budget together. They didn't understand cash flow. I asked the question, who owns your budget? And
great question.
I'll take it. I'll take it. You get nothing more than I think you need. Why would I want to give you my budget, right? So, and that's kind of where the money matters concept was, putting together workshops for the executives at the organization. And then a number of years later, I ended up working for a not-for-profit, United Cerebral Palsy. Here. I'm in Tampa Bay, and I was working there for about a year or so. And I learned something there that was totally out of my field, and it had to do with early intervention. If someone has a stronghold or some medical issue or physical issue, and it's known very early in their livelihood, is a great chance that can be resolved. But if you wait and it's, they're 10 years old now, it's not going to happen. And the light kind of went off. Well, why can't we have early intervention for financial literacy? And that's where Money Matters University for Kids came in. And we currently have like 24 different topics, and we have workbooks for children, adults, students, foster care, reentry, second chance, and we go from kindergarten right through to young adult. And even young adult, I'll say young business owner. You could be 60 and that's your first business. You're a young adult in the business world.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it all came from.
In the work that you do, and I'll just kind of demographically constrain this, 18 to 24, I'll just kind of put it in that domain. What kind of financial literacy do you recognize being present or missing in that age group? Because these are folks that are coming into the workforce,
right?
And they may or may not be starting a business, but they're certainly going to be part of one. What's the level of literacy, financial literacy, that is present generically?
I just don't think typically what we see is lack of understanding budgeting and making sure that you're making business decisions today. Like if I'm buying a house, that I really have enough money to pay my mortgage, and it doesn't matter what a banker says. They could say it's 36% or 40 some odd percent of your income, but you may not be able to manage that. So that's not taught in schools. It's
right.
Math. So teaching math and not teaching how to use finance is like teaching someone the inner workings of a car, but not teaching them how to drive. So what the financial literacy that is missing is the ability to drive their finances and make good decisions, and understanding that a number of, it's kind of mixed, because I'm also seeing a little bit of a turn. We have a lot of new young business people in their 20s that are recognizing they really do need professional service and support. And we're finding that there's a little shift going on. I'm not really sure where that's coming from, but it just kind of recently started.
It's shows like this with conversations with people like you, I think, that are beginning to generate some stuff.
Well, it's helpful. I mean, everybody really needs to, from my perspective, our mission is to really empower each individual to understand their finances so they can build and maintain their wealth.
Build and maintain. Yeah, there's an interesting, which is different than accumulating.
That's right. And also when it comes to like their overall, like we call it, what are the goals of the stakeholder, not the stockholder.
Right.
On the business side, if I'm working in a not-for-profit, it's not about profit. It's about outcomes. It's about servicing the community. It's about helping individuals. So and although it's not necessarily finances, this attributes and the actual skills you need are very similar.
The idea of profit as compared to cash flow. I want to, yeah. You talk about a can of worms. What kind of I hate to ask this in the context of what kind of or how, but there is for me in my businesses that I've started and moved out and exited and whatnot, cash flow has actually been more important than profit
100%.
at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And I learned that real, oops, that kind of a moment where, damn, I can't make payroll. We're profitable, but what happened?
So Money Matters University is the education wing of our business, and we also have a small accounting practice. So we do have some small businesses that we take care of their P&Ls and balance sheets and so on. And so we've created our own little, very simple Excel spreadsheet cash flow report, and we show them that there is a difference. And it would be something pretty technical now, but it's a cash versus accrual concept, basically, where you may be recording profit, but you didn't receive the money. So you could pay taxes and you can owe taxes and not have money to pay.
Have money to pay them, but it's on the books.
And one of the other big things that we do, and we also teach in one of our courses about taxes and about the IRS and about debt and all that, is a tax plan. It's so easy if you get the right accountant, your local, tax preparer, to do a tax plan in October, November, so even earlier in the year, so okay, I need to put so much in taxes. And so, and very often I see a W-2 where they're taking 5% out for their federal taxes. And if you're making a reasonable salary, the lowest tax bracket is 10. So if you're only taking out 5, and they don't know. They actually don't know. And we'll explain, you can manage that. So that's all about cash flow. So you're 100% right. It's all about cash flow. So we put this special report together, which is not required. And I think actually with the AICPA and the regulations, they should require those reports because that's more important than a P&L and a balance sheet.
Yeah, it actually, based on experience, that is certainly true. Yeah. I learned that lesson and continue to really adhere to it. MoneyMattersUniversity.com is where people can go to find out more about the course offerings and whatnot. Again, how many courses do you have there?
So we have 24 topics.
24 topics, okay.
And of those topics, they're in 5 different tracks. So we actually have about 50 some odd different books, and we can dice, and we actually have quite a bit of flexibility if we wanted to do something special for like an organization. But for individuals, I'll tell you what the most common thing I hear is when I see a parent pick up the book and look at it, the first thing they say is, I wish I had this when I was a kid. And so
hands in the air.
And so that's kind of where we are.
Oh, great. Richard, love having you on the show. Apologies that David wasn't able to join us.
That's okay.
We will have you back again for
Thanks
sure.
So much. Okay. Have a great holiday.
You do the same. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Take care. Cash flow is king. It truly is. Those of you that are listening and have got your own business, you got to pay attention to that stuff. It'll come back and bite you in the tail if you're not careful. Business 101 here. Okay. Moving right along, Jason Jaggard, best-selling author, leadership futurist. And I love futurists. I love talking to futurists. I really do. It's kind of like, what if? What's going on out there? Why modern marketing is the opposite of leadership. That is a real interesting positioning, Jason. And I'm just going to give the floor to you on this one without a whole lot of preamble. And I want to just take that. Why modern marketing is the opposite of leadership. What's your intention and what are you positioning there?
Yeah, thanks, Blaine. Thanks for having me on the show. And this is something that I'm passionate about, both at our firm, and we run an executive coaching firm. We have over 60 coaches working with some of the best people in the world. And over and over again, you hear in marketing that you want to base marketing on felt needs. And that's fine, basing marketing on felt needs, but I prefer marketing that's based on deep needs. And in coaching,
on what kind of needs?
Deep needs.
Deep.
Yeah, so because felt needs are not the same thing as deep needs. When you wake up in the morning, you want to maybe drink water, have some sugar. Think about more carnal things like maybe sex. But those things are fine, but they're not fulfilling. And so part of the conversation that we like having at the firm is we say a good coach helps you get what you want, but a great coach helps you expand what you want. And the expansion conversation isn't necessarily going to be around felt needs like time management or things like that. It's going to be around deeper needs like fulfillment and meaning and love.
Right. So Maslow's hierarchy kind of comes into play here a little bit.
Yeah, what's interesting about Maslow is he never really talked about it as a hierarchy. He only used that word hierarchy once in his research, and because otherwise, people the kind of the stereotype is when people go into developing countries and they marvel at they may sleep on a floor without carpet, but they seem to have so much joy, and that can be trite, but it's also true. Yeah. And the reality is that you don't need necessarily some of the things that it's not sequential. It's not a hierarchy. That meaning and fulfillment and what people call self-actualization is just as important as some of those other things. Through my wife's foundation, and David and I are both on the board. We have done a lot of work in sub-Saharan Africa, and to your point, sleeping in a bed is very nice. But I have been, in the Mara with the Maasai tribes out in the bush, sleeping on the ground, and they are some of the most joyous people I've ever come across. They are absolutely a delight to be around. Yeah, and so then the question, of course, becomes: it's not an either or. Is how do you create great wealth and success and prosperity and fulfillment at the same time?
So. Yeah, the book Beyond High Performance is your best-selling, USA Today best-selling book. What are some of the key points that you actually illuminate in Beyond High Performance?
Well, with Beyond High Performance, I was doing some consulting with a Fortune 10 company, and we were having this conversation around, what are some of their leadership challenges, and they said, well, we have a bunch of high performers. And I said, great. So like, what's the problem? Yeah. And they said, we have a bunch of high performers. And I said, ha, ha, ha. Like, I heard that already. Like, what's the problem? And they said, Jason, you're not listening. We're telling you the problem. We have a bunch of high performers. And my whole life, I thought being a high performer was the point. I'd never heard it described as the problem. And what we discovered in our coaching, we were currently with over 700 clients, ranging from professional athletes to some of the most successful entertainers on earth, and business leaders and everyone in between. And what we discovered is, most people put most of their energy into figuring out how to get good at something. Yeah. Very few people figure out what to do after you're good at something. And so we started building a whole, for lack of a better phrase, curriculum or process or content around how do we work with people who are already good at what they do, and help them ask the question, what do you do after you're good at what you do? And that is the principles that we talk about in the book.
And okay, so principles. Yeah. What do you do after you've gotten good? Okay. and doing what you're doing. And if the problem is I've got a team of high performers, where's the disconnect?
Yeah. So part of the challenge with high performers, and just as a quick litmus test to figure out if this is you or the team that you lead, several predictable things start emerging once a person perceives themselves to be a high performer. And by the way, statistically speaking, only a small amount of people can be a high performer. But I think the research says like 60% of all people in the workforce believe they're a high performer.
Believe they are, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we tend to over-index our own competency. But as soon as you believe that you are a high performer, lots of things begin to happen. One is you become less open to feedback. Two, you become simultaneously bored and overwhelmed at the same time. Three, you start looking at other people competitively. Like it's lonely at the top, and if the only way to stay at the top is for you to either grow, which you're not going to do because you believe you're at max capacity, or B, you got to fight against other people and keep them from growing. And so like that, what we call the high performer problem or the high performer mindset becomes challenging. And so what we do is we start asking the question, and this is the title of the book, is what's beyond high performance? Is there something beyond high performance? Because we don't want to suggest that they're not what they say they are. We don't want to suggest that they're not doing great with the metrics that they're choosing to measure. What we want to do is we want to say, hey, what if this is not the end point, but what if this is only the beginning? And we find that to be an evocative question. In fact, in our sport division, Andrew Ladd, who's his birthday's tomorrow actually, and he's a 2-time Stanley Cup award-winning hockey player. And he's the director of our sport division. So he manages all of our coaches who work with different athletes in the NFL and the NBA, et cetera. And he told me one time, he said, Jason, there's 2 types of athletes who make it into professional sport. He said, there's the ones that when they make it into professional sport, they say, I've arrived. And there's the ones when they make it into professional sport, they say, I've only just begun. and the career trajectories of those two athletes is radically different. And we've discovered, again, in working with entertainers and artists and business leaders at companies like Netflix or the Rockefeller Group, multi-billion-dollar real estate company here in New York, that it's the same. There's a lot of people when they get the job or the promotion or they become CEO, they say, I've arrived. Or there's the people who are like, man, I need to really roll up my sleeves because I'm only just beginning.
Yeah. And that is a question of mindset at that point in time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's all mindset. In fact, I was talking to a woman who went through our program. We have so there's the firm. We have Novus Global, which is the firm, and then we have a separate company which is called the Meta Performance Institute, and it kind of gives away our best secrets to people who want to use it either in a managerial sense or want to build a coaching practice of their own. And we had a woman who went through who's a former Olympian, super famous, and has done very well, and now is using some of this coaching on her own. And she was telling us, she goes, Jason, when it comes to Olympians, there's not a huge difference between gold medal and silver medal physically. Like a gold medalist swimmer and a silver medalist swimmer have the physiques are mostly the same. The major difference is mindset. And you wouldn't necessarily think that, but I'm working currently with a hockey player myself. And the thing that we talk about more almost every session is how are you doing at winning the game in your mind? If you can win the game in your mind, everything else takes care of itself.
Tim Galloway, wrote, the inner tennis, inner golf.
Yes.
This goes back a ways, but I'm dating myself by bringing those titles up. But and Trevor Mowat. I remember, some of the stuff that Trevor used to do with, the Seahawks in particular. He did a lot of work with them, but it was all around mindset. He worked with Pete, and his team, and the idea. And this is, Russell, I think Russell Wilson was, I think, an exemplar in this, in the sense of, okay, now I haven't arrived. Now that I'm here, it's just beginning. Yeah. And that began a hell of a run for the Seahawks. Yeah, no kidding. And using the football metaphor, meta performance is about having the courage to move the goal lines. Once you don't treat a touchdown like a touchdown, treat it like a first down, and let's move the goal lines and see what can happen. And what we've discovered is for a lot of people, maybe people listening to this, it can be really challenging to believe that you're capable of more, because you feel like you're working so hard and you feel like you're doing so much and you feel like there's so much on your plate and you're so overwhelmed. And you really do need somebody to walk alongside you, a coach, a mentor, counselor, pastor, to invite you into what we call safe spaces to have dangerous conversations, to challenge the way you do things, challenge your perspective, challenge your mindset in order to really explore what you're capable of. I love that. The idea of sustainable success in life, the way we've come to define it in the work that we do, is developing the capacity to continuously start over. Yes. And that makes, when people begin to grok that it really makes a difference. And it becomes a question of capacity, not so much skill development, but capacity to expand, capacity to learn, yes. What are these capacities? The capacity to step into the unknown. Yeah, that's right. And really, if you compare yourself to some of the great leaders of history, your physiology is 99% the same. So the difference isn't physicality. The difference is like what you're talking about, the tools of perspective, the desire to dream of something bigger. And those aren't innate, those are choices, and everyone has the capacity to make those choices. Beautiful. You can find out more about what Jason and his group is up to. Novus Global, it actually is one of the fastest growing executive coaching firms in the world. Now, he's doing some great stuff, in a number of different sectors, not the least of which is sports, but business. There's all kinds of stuff going on there. You've worked with, Forbes, Fast Company, New York Times have been published in this area. I love what you're up to. And you can find out more at jasonjaggard.com. That's your personal website, I'm assuming, and that will point to other places. I've got a hunch. Yeah. It's a lightning rod to the firm, Novus.global, to the Institute, MP.Institute. Everything's there. Beautiful. Jason, apologies that David wasn't able to join us That's all right. today. We will have you back at another show where he is available. And I'd love to book you on my Soul of Business podcast. because I think a much longer conversation rather than the 10 minutes we're allotted for this would make a lot of sense.
That'd be great, Blaine. It's really nice meeting you.
You as well, my friend. You have a great holiday, and see you next year.
Thanks, you too.
You bet. Take care. Folks, you've been listening to Office Hours number 821. I am Blaine Bartlett. I am a co-host of the show. David was not able to join us, and the other co-host, Rhett Power, is also tied up in the air, so he's not able to join us. We all came back from Las Vegas yesterday after filming season number 9 of Office Hours, the Apple TV show, which will be going up after the first of the year. So be sure you tune into that. And in the meantime, we will see you next week on Office Hours. David will be here, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and thank you to all of my guests today. Take care.